H2O AI Hybrid Cloud is an end-to-end platform that enables organizations to rapidly make world-class AI models and applications for virtually any use case. Building AI models used to take large teams of expert data scientists months or even years. With H2O AI Hybrid Cloud, an individual data engineer, developer, or data scientist can make world-class AI models and applications many times faster, rapidly putting AI into the hands of business users. H2O AI Hybrid Cloud brings automation capabilities across the entire data science lifecycle, including connecting to and preparing data, building and explaining models, and deploying and operating them. The platform also makes it easy to publish and share AI applications across an entire organization. H2O AI Hybrid Cloud runs on Kubernetes, allowing customers to operate on any cloud or on-premise infrastructure. If you're looking for a solution that enables you to put AI into the hands of every employee, get started with H2O AI Hybrid Cloud. One platform, thousands of use cases.
Hello, good evening, everyone. I am Fernando Domingues, and I will be your host tonight. And I am very proud to be representing A2AI here in this event. This is the biggest event of artificial intelligence in Brazil. And we are very proud to have our sponsors, H2O, Suzano, Semantics, EducaCross, ProInfo, FIA. These are our sponsors for all the week, and we are very grateful for these people doing and supporting our activities in Brazil. And I'd like to share my screen, and let me see. Okay, let me see. It's another one, this one.
Presentation is okay, Fernando. We are all seeing it.
Okay, fine, good. So, and let's go ahead. One moment. Okay, and okay. I2AI is an association that was born to help the country to integrate these technologies in his development. And I want to tell you that we are part of a movement that are word about that put Brazil in the map of artificial intelligence worldwide. And we are very capable of doing this when we put together all the actors of this ecosystem that are building and they are developing AI applications, the people that are researching AI, and also other actors like the companies, the startups, big techs, and the professionals of this beautiful profession that is all connected to the artificial intelligence systems. What we have been doing many events like this one, and this is something that we do the most, because we think that we can put all the people together and sharing their experience, sharing their knowledge, that will be the way that we can help people and help the country to deploy artificial intelligence all over the companies and help solve the big problems that we have in our country. Another thing that we, because we are very worried about disseminating the knowledge of AI, our committees are working very hard to have some ebooks launching. We are now launching the ebook Demystifying the Machine Learning. So you can download this machine learning book from our website for free. This is one thing that was an effort from the machine learning committee of our association, and the members of our association has written this ebook that is very good. And if you want to understand a little bit more about machine learning, you can download and read it. Please, we also are doing an effort to disseminate the knowledge. Another thing that we are doing right now is we have the glossary of terms of artificial intelligence. This is a small sample of it. Next slide. And so we can see our glossary that is being, you can access our YouTube channel, Conexões Inteligentes, A2AI, Conexões Inteligentes, our YouTube channel. There you see a playlist of all of the terms of our glossary. Each one is a small video with someone that is explaining all the terms that you see in our list. In terms of what is artificial intelligence, what is data science, what is data lake, what is big data, algorithms, cognitive computation, IoT, machine learning. So we have a lot of terms that we normally use in artificial intelligence, And this is a way that we found to people to learn and to know all the terms that we are most used in artificial intelligence. We are now at chapter 28, the rights of robots, and this was the last one, and we will see the next ones from 29 up to 40 on next weeks, okay? So if you can learn a little bit, you can access on YouTube and our H2AI channel. This is our schedule for this week at this time at 7 p.m. Yesterday we have Somaye Nikpur. She was from the government of Canada. Today we expect to have Tulsi Doshi. She's a leader, a product leader from Google. And tomorrow you have Brent Barrow. He is the director of strategic projects of CIFAR. And on Thursday, we will have Devika Malaria. It is public sector growth and strategy lead of Blue Dot. So during the week, we are having many international speakers and also Brazilian speakers. And this is what makes this event so important. So today, in the morning, we have Suzano talking a very beautiful talk about how the Suzano is implementing AI in a big company, a centennial company. So it was an amazing presentation. You can review this presentation in our channel in YouTube. Then we have an interview with Daniel Gabulio, that was VP Latam from H2O, that is one of our sponsors. We have talked about the journey of AI, how you can start a journey of AI in your company. And then we have the presentations of 3 startups from Portugal. And these startups are innovative startups that are changing the world and is changing. They brought some cases that were very interesting about explainable AI and about the consulting in AI, and also a very interesting presentation of the newsroom about how we can fight misinformation on the web and fight against fake news and things like that. Then we also had Joana Paiva from iLove. Joana made a presentation, astonishing presentation, telling us how he can match together the research from the university, from investigation center, and we can put all this in favor, machine learning algorithms in favor to solve some healthcare problems from in diseases like cancer or Alzheimer and many others. It was very amazing presentation as well. So, and now we are just waiting for Tulsi Doshi. That up to now, I don't think she is here already. And
Fernando, let me give you the last information. Tulsi, Fernando is explaining a little bit longer than usual because Tulsi is trying to connect. I don't know what's going on with her connection there. She's facing some Wi-Fi problem there. You see that not only in Brazil that we face that kind of problem. She's trying to solve it while she's trying to solve it. Fernando was giving a long explanation about our event. Tomorrow we keep having a great agenda. And I don't know, Fernando, if you remember, I think many people are here that are involved, are waiting to know who was the person that was awarded today, was ruffled. Yesterday, I was asking for the people, for the translators that are supporting us in translating to us. What is the word for for sortear in Portuguese, in English, because I was with a blank yesterday, and they remembered me that I was ruffle. Then we are going to ruffle one prize every day, yeah, Fernando. And today the winner was, can give the right information. I'm just checking if Tulsi will be able to enter by cell phone or not. And while that, you can inform this who is the winner and which is the prize. Okay, Fernando. Just
Oh,
a
yes.
sec. I come back in a few minutes.
Let me tell you, the winner today was Jaime Maciel Sampaio. He has made his check-in at 8:17 in the morning, and you already know, if you check in once a day, you are participating in this raffle. So today, Jaime Maciel Sampaio has won a kit from Suzano. We have the kit here. Let me see if I can show you. And the kit's here. Or here. And you can see, this is a very interesting prize because you have a phone and a Moleskine and a mug. And this is what Jaime Maciel Sampaio won. And I also like to tell you that tomorrow we will be back with presentation of great presentations tomorrow. Let me show you. We will have these ones. Let me see if I can go back here. So tomorrow, we are starting in very early in the morning at 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock, you will have Bernardo Flalo from XP Investimentos, XP Investimentos, and he's going to talk about how the artificial intelligence is helping the trader. XP is a fintech in Brazil, and now it's a bank, a very big bank as well. Then we will have next year, after this, we will have in the lunchtime an interview with Renato Veloso. He is the CEO from Dr. Consulta. He's talking about accessibility to the healthcare, diagnostics, and treatments using AI. It will be a very interesting talk with him. And then we will have two startups talking presenting their solutions, Tony and Nanos. This will be at 1:30 in the afternoon. And just after, we'll have at 2 o'clock this speech from Hubert Beroschi. He's a founder of Urban AI. It's time to urbanize AI. So, and after all of this, at this time at night, we will have Brent Barron. And Brent Barron is a director of strategic and projects knowledge mobilization of SciFar. He is talking about AI changing how we work and live and live experiences from Canada. So this is our agenda for tomorrow. And we hope you have all of you here tomorrow. Unhappily, we have this problem with Tulsi today. We are waiting for her if she can manage to get in our presentation. Otherwise, I want to also thanks to our sponsors, H2O, Suzano, Semantics, EducaCross, and ProInfo FIA. And
okay, Fernando, now I have the last news. Tulsi is trying hard to enter to our presentation here. I promised her that we are going to wait until 7:30 for her to say hello at least and shows what they are doing at Google. And while that, I think that we can start this great discussion of tonight regarding governance, and I hope that she can join us in the next 10. She asked me for 8 minutes at 2 minutes ago. Then I think that 7.5 we can start with her. Yeah, let us hope that she's calling the Wi-Fi provider, check what's going on and so on. I know that it's not what we planned for tonight, but I think that it works because we're talking about how Google deal with one of the most important topics of the moment. And we are doing also, I don't know if I told to everybody, but Fernando knows it. We are doing a great effort by i2AI to support the governance discussion of the artificial intelligence strategy, national strategy. And one of the most famous, how can I say, framework for governance is the Singapore developed one. And Singapore brings some very, very interesting talks regarding governance. One of the topics that they mention is that it's very important to realize what are the kind of automation that we're doing. That you are automating a decision, and with artificial intelligence, we do a lot of decision automation. We collect data, like I want to do a diagnosis of a person has or not cancer, or I want to decide if this face is or not for a criminal or for a person that I'm looking for, and so on. And we can classify what kind of complexity of this decision is. This is one point. And another thing that you should classify is the impact of the decision. And this is very interesting when we're talking about impact of decision, because if you can imagine, there is decisions that you take like a recommendation system. If you do a wrong decision for a recommendation system, if you send to you a product that you are not wanting to buy, what happens? Almost nothing. You receive the recommendation, you don't like it, you don't buy it, and nobody's hurt, nobody is in any trouble. But you can imagine if this is what happened is a little bit different. You can imagine if the problem that we face is that it's for a cancer treatment, or it's to get you into a jail or not. You can imagine the implication of this decision. Then there is some decisions, if you're talking about governance, there is some decisions depending on the impact and the complexity of it. There is some decisions that would be very good if you add a human on the loop. It's a risky decision. Then you should add a human on in the loop. And this is one of the hot discussions right now when we're talking about governance. We're talking about when you should be more concerned about automatizing a AI decision or a AI evaluation, and how you do in the way that you don't want to do it fully automatized because you have a high risk of the decision. Then there is, I would say that this is a very, very incredible topic, because there is many issues that you don't really pay attention in the daily life when you are programming, when you are thinking about solutions. But if you go on in this development that we are doing, the technical development is already ready for that reality. But I would say that the society, the discussion of governance, the discussion of how we should use this kind of models, how you should use this kind of algorithms in the daily solution. If we're going to apply in a health solution, a security solution, we are going to do in retail solution. Depending on the context, you need to consider this issue because this issue is very critical. And I like this conversation that we are supposed to have with Tusi in the following. I like the frame of it, because when we're talking about building responsible products, we need to consider all this. And you need to consider all this, Fernando, not only after you launch a product, but you need to consider this best practice when you are thinking on it, when you are designing the product, when you are developing AI-based product. And then this is something that I really believe if you are starting right now your startup, or if you are on your big company that looking for how to implement AI in your solution, in your product, in your processes, it's a key issue that you should be aware. You should be aware of that, because without that, it could be very critical for them. Then, because of that, I do believe that very absolutely this discussion of governance, and we had started it yesterday with Somaye from the Canada government. She started to explain the difference of biases and the difference of a concept of fairness and so on. And now, and I have the confirmation finally that Tulsi will be here in 1 minute for them. Then it's
Wow.
true. She's coming in 1 minute. Be there in a minute, she said. And this conversation about responsibility, this conversation about I would say fairness, I would say bias, I would say data governance is key for the society right now, and key for the business right now. It's key for everybody, for the consumers, for the then absolutely this is a hot topic, and because of that, I'm very glad that we are in the evening speakers, in the evening part of our event. We are going to go deeper in this discussion. We're going to have many different perspectives of it. Then I don't know what you think about it, Fernando, but I'm really excited by this kind of discussions.
Yeah, and we also have in a course. You are our teacher in the course about governance that will be in October. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. You have discounted today, and R$180, 180 reais of discount for each one that wants to enroll in this course about governance. Alexandre is giving us some statements of this course, and I think it will be a very good idea to go to enroll and to follow this thought about governance, because this is a thing that we all have to be worried about. We also discussed this subject in our committee, ethical committee, governance and ethical committee, and so this is what we in the I2AI we are all worried about this subject. So when we have many different ways of discussing and exchanging experience, because this is a real subject that we must be worried about when we are building our applications. Tulsi, I think she's coming.
Now she is. Great, Fernando. Thank you for your time, for your patience with us. But Tulsi, she's able to join us. Yeah.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Tulsi.
Thank you so much for being so patient. I sincerely apologize for my tardiness. It turns out that working from home has its problems when it comes to Wi-Fi connection. So that's very exciting.
Wow. Okay, Tulsi, we are very glad to have you here. But I have talked about our association, I2AI, and I just want to introduce you, and we are here to hear from you. Tulsi Doshi is a product leader in Google's efforts in machine learning, fairness, and responsible AI, driving a deeper understanding of how we can build the user experiences that are diverse, inclusive, and ethical. Today, we will be talking on the subject, building responsible products, best practices for design and developing AI-based products for everyone. Okay, Tulsi, the stage is yours. Enjoy.
Amazing. All right. So I, per my own tardiness, condensed sort of the time of this talk. So I do want to make sure that we do have some time for questions. And so what I'm going to try and do is share a brief kind of look at some of the ways that we think about responsible AI and specifically fairness when building machine learning products. And then I'll take some time for questions and maybe we can have a little bit of a discussion. So as was introduced, my name is Tulsi. I lead product for responsible AI at Google. That means I work with product teams across Google, YouTube, search, ads, photos, many others to really think about what does it mean to build inclusive products and how do we do that in a way that is thoughtful and principled. So let me present my screen. Share screen. That's weird. It seems to mute me when I share my screen. Don't really know how to get around that.
If you want to try again, let me check in. And it's okay if you want to do your presentation without the presentation mode. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I can do that in the worst case scenario, but let me try this one more time and then see what happens. Okay, well, it's not going to work. So you're just going to get to hear the verbal version of this from me, in which case I would love to make it more of a discussion. So please unmute and please interrupt if you have any questions as I speak. So thank you all for being here and thank you for having me. I apologize again for being late. As I mentioned, right, when you talk about responsible AI, that means a lot of things to a lot of people, right? And fundamentally to me, it means building machine learning and AI that works for every user, right? So that means that you actually avoid creating or reinforcing unfair bias. You make sure the AI works in a way that is safe, right? That protects users and is secure from vulnerabilities, that incorporates privacy design principles, that is accountable to our users, and that is socially beneficial, right? You also want to make sure that it is only being used in use cases that support those principles and not in cases that can cause significant harm. And so a lot of what we think about at Google is how do we make sure that the systems that we're building really uphold these principles? They really work well. And this process is one that, is, I think, has to be accounted for throughout the product development process, right? If you're someone who builds machine learning or AI-based systems, you'll know that we're talking about starting with data collection, right? Actually, even before that, problem definition, right? What are we building? Why do we need machine learning? Then to data collection. What are we collecting? Where are we collecting it from? Who does that data represent? To then actually training the model, to then deploying that model, to then monitoring its progress as it continues. So throughout this space, we are continuing to build and develop machine learning systems and also tools and techniques that can support us through that process. And thinking about all the lessons that we learned throughout that process. So one thing I would really think about as you're developing these products yourself is what can we do in this space to really fully deep dive and make sure that as I'm building a product, I'm thinking through these problems. And that starts with from the very beginning when you're defining the problem statement. So when you're first deciding, hey, I want to use machine learning, well, why are we using it? Why is machine learning the solution? And what are the potential risks or harms that can come with that? And how do we make sure that diverse voices from diverse participants across the globe can actually be a part of that conversation? Because the reality is everyone will have a different experience of the product. And depending on their experience of the product, that may affect actually, the outcomes we see here. Then when you collect the data, the question becomes, how do we think about data collection as a part of that? And when you're building your training data sets and your evaluation data sets, think about the nuances of your target population. There is no such thing as unbiased data. All data reflects some perspective of the world, right? I might have data that represents the United States. I might have data that represents Latin America. I might have data that represents Central and South America. I might have data that represents East Asia. I might have data that's meant to be global. But if it is global, who is it representing? Is it representing the population who uses your product? And if so, who is that population? Does it represent a population who came for user surveys or user research? If so, who is that population? So really thinking about who is your data actually working for and who is your data not, right? So here's a fun example that I always love to give. So we launched this fun little app called Google Draw. And the idea was that you can play basically a game with this app where the app will draw a picture or will say a word and you draw a picture of that word. So the app will say shoe and then you draw a picture of a shoe. But then you could also play games with the app where like once someone tells you to draw a shoe, you draw a shoe. And then another part of the game guesses what did you draw, right? Did you draw a bird, a plane, a shoe? And we also were able to use that to collect a bunch of training data, right? Of how do people draw objects in the world? And what we realized was that over time, when we asked people to draw shoes, most people drew, sneakers, things that kind of look like shoes with laces. People weren't drawing heels. And so as a result, the model never actually learned to guess that a heel was a shoe. And this is a great example, I think, of the kinds of ways the data can learn biases or can, imbibe biases, even when we're unintentional about it. Because the reality is our users will always act in diverse ways with diverse needs and diverse outcomes that lead our models to be built on those foundations and to grow based on that. And so it's also important not just to be thoughtful about the data that you collect, but also to make sure that you test. Evaluate that data, make sure that it actually represents the assumptions you make. And then once you train the model, develop metrics to measure what fairness or responsibility means for you and your use cases. And the reality is it will often mean more than one thing. You might have a certain metric that measures a certain type of fairness. You might have a different metric that measures a different type of fairness in a different use case. And depending on what you have and what you've built out, you might want to measure 3, 4, 5 different metrics across different types of communities and user groups, right? So for example, let's say I have a text classifier, and let's say that text classifier is classifying sentences into hateful and mean sentences and nice and kind and innocuous sentences. These fall on two sides of the spectrum. When I have a classifier, if I'm trying to evaluate if that classifier is fair, what does that mean? Does it mean that I want sentences with certain terms to be classified in a certain way? Sentences about certain communities? Sentences using certain types of, sentence structure that might represent certain types of accents or speaking styles or writing styles? Different languages? And so depending on what it is that you want to measure and what it is that is important to your users, you may have to come up with different metrics to represent those needs and to be able to then challenge those needs as you're evaluating your product. That then leads directly into what kinds of improvements can you make to your model, into the way that you design your model, into the way that you train the model, into the way that you deploy the model. I think it's also really important to think about the full picture of what you're building and designing. Usually, at least in most Google products, the user doesn't interact directly with the model, right? They interact with a product, a UI, a wrapping that surrounds the model. And so how can we make sure that as we're building out this experience, we actually have products that support the ability for users to tell us when we make a mistake, to fail gracefully, to give users the optionality of really being able to build out a richer experience for themselves, because every user will have a different engagement with the product. So that's really about controls, right? About giving users feedback, accountability, and controls associated with the product. I did a lot of talking, and I find sometimes that it's harder to grasp when there aren't slides to kind of follow along and point to. So I am going to stop there briefly. Any thoughts, questions, comments on what I shared? Otherwise, I can dive in deeper into other examples and other things like that.
Tutsi, I don't know if you know, but most of our audience is in YouTube. They can write down there. Here's just our staff that who are looking to in Zoom, and our audience is in YouTube. We can ask for more questions if you want, but you can show up some examples as well. I think that we can ask for other questions there. But it's been great. I think that even if you didn't say that you are going to use how can I say support material, I would not realize it's very clean and very well plotted. The way that you are presenting the talks, I'm loving it. Yeah, by the way,
I appreciate that. Thank you. All right. Well, hello, YouTube audience, who I can't communicate with. I'll share some examples and talk through some things that I think might be interesting or helpful for those of you who are working in the machine learning space. So one that I want to call out as a starting point is just talking a little bit about tools and techniques. So if you're an AI developer who is building machine learning products, how do you actually go about doing all of these things? Well, actually, if you go to tensorflow.com/responsible-AI, you'll see there a set of tools that we've built to help you throughout this stage of the process. Throughout each stage of the process. So what I mean by that is I mentioned, that thinking about responsible AI is an end-to-end problem, right? It really has to deal with the full life cycle, from defining the problem to actually deploying and monitoring the model. And at each stage of this, we've built guides that can help you through that process. So at the define problem stage, we have the People in AI Guidebook. We also have the Responsible AI Practices, which you'll see on the website. We also have a crash course in machine learning fairness that you can take to kind of gain some more of these skills and concepts. When you go then to collecting and preparing the data, we've built a product called Know Your Data that helps you look at actually and understand and analyze your data. We also have a product called TensorFlow Data Validation and Facets, which allows you to actually slice by different slices of features and see where maybe you have more or less representation. For example, you could slice your data set and see, oh, wait, I actually have no data that's coming from Asia. And so that means that that whole continent is going to be left out of my product experience or not necessarily well captured by what I'm building. And you want to be thoughtful about what you slice your data by. What are the diverse features you're trying to capture? The other thing I'll call out, though, is, like I said earlier, because data is unbiased, there becomes the question then of, well, who are we leaving out? So one thing we've really been thinking about at Google is transparency and documentation. How can you make sure that when you build a product, you're explicitly acknowledging its limitations? Who is it working for? But who is it maybe not working as well for? And what does that mean? Is that something you're still comfortable launching with? Or do we actually want to see differences over time? If that's the case, where do we need to invest? Where do we need to go collect more data? Who do we need to involve in the product development process to better understand what is being left out? When you get to the next step, you get to training your model. And this is where technically you can make a lot of changes to be able to support things like privacy, fairness, optimize for certain efforts. And so we actually have libraries, whether that's TensorFlow Federated, TensorFlow Constrained Optimization, or TF Remediation, that allow you to actually explicitly change the way that you're modeling to be able to account for some of these important differences. You can then evaluate that model using fairness indicators or other tools that we've built that allow you to actually probe and test your model. For language tools, we recently launched the language interpretability tool. And that actually allows you to go into sentences or to NLP models broadly and to really actually understand, why was a particular decision made? What led to that decision? How can I better understand why my model is performing the way it is in a way that I can continue to grow and expand? And lastly, as you deploy and monitor, there's ways that you can continuously evaluate your model so that you can ensure that if things change or if behavior differs from what you expect, or your model actually just, fails in some way, you can actually catch that and do something differently about it. So I would definitely recommend checking out some of these tools and resources. And these are only some of the tools and resources that exist across the industry to help you think about responsible AI as you build and develop throughout the flow. I would also say, though, that the most important thing you can do is to really think about how do you bring in diverse perspectives as every step of the way. How do you do that right user research? How do you dog food and test your product with different populations? Can you stress test and adversarially test the kinds of ways your product can fail? Thinking about both all of the ways that your product can succeed and help users, but also all of the consequences of that, I think are really important, right? So a great example of this that we've been thinking about is Google Translate. Many of you might have used Google Translate. It's a fantastic product, allows you to translate from one language to another. And it works really well in terms of opening doors and bridges, bringing communities together to be able to speak and communicate with one another. But what we found is that when you are translating from a language that is gendered to a language that is non-gendered, that could often create problems. So for example, in English, I might say, this person is my friend. But of course, friend in Spanish might mean amigo or amiga, right? Same is true for doctor or for nurse. And we found that Translate, after having learned off of billions of text corpus for billions of books and texts and readings, had learned certain stereotypes and was translating nurse to a female version and doctor to a male version. And this, I think, is a great example of how, even if you are thoughtful about data collection and trying to collect out of large amounts of text and readings, your model can learn biases that you didn't expect based on systemic biases in the world. And this is why it's important not just to understand what is being reflected in your data and what are common potentially stereotypes or correlations that we're seeing, but also how can we actually measure for that in the model itself and test for that so that we can proactively discover these kinds of issues. And then there's the question of, well, how do we improve that if we found that, right? On one hand, we can try and continue to collect more representative data of different types of professions, for example. We can try and improve the training of the model to make the model more robust and more accurate. But we can also improve the product itself. And in the case of Translate, we actually changed the UI to be able to provide the user with two options. So if I were to translate, this person is my friend, I would have both the masculine option and the feminine option. And then I, as a user, could choose which option I meant in order to translate. And so this not only shows what you can do from a data and a modeling perspective, but what you can actually do to provide users more agency in the product experience and really think about how you want to design a product that works holistically for multiple groups. And of course, we still have a lot of work to do on Translate as well as on other products. But I think this is the kind of thesis we want to bring into the work that we're doing and the kind of impact that we ideally want to build over time. I'll stop there. I know we did want to leave 10 minutes for questions, but it sounds like most of the audience is on YouTube. If you do have questions based on this talk or other talks that mine that you can find on YouTube, I'm happy to answer it. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn or other places. We can continue the dialogue from there.
Yeah, but they have many questions here, and I think Fernando will did some. Yeah, you will want to do the question, Fernando, or may I do it? Because there is many questions by YouTube coming to see.
Perfect. Yeah, let's do those questions then. That sounds great.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Then I'm going to do it. And Fernando allowed me to do it. One first one here is, what do you think about the usage of AI inducing the high consuming of purchasing in the website? This how can I say, impulsion purchase that we can do with this.
Are we talking about
recommendation system? It could be. It's a question about if I understood it right, Tulsi. This person is asking about your opinion of the usage of excess of this manipulation algorithm for purchasing, or for, how can I say that?
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
more,
if I understand let me frame back what I understood from you in terms of the question, which is like, how do we think about the potential for AI to manipulate users into buying certain things, or being involved and I think it's important to think about what is the role of personalized systems, right? I think that this is where again it becomes really important, like what is the objective that we're setting and what is the goal that we're setting, right? And is the goal to if you optimize purely for a certain outcome, which is we just want users to buy, that's one outcome. But if you really optimize for how can we give users the best experience, how do we make sure that users are satisfied with their experience, that they are finding value in the product, right? That they are getting a valuable outcome for them, I think that's really where we want to push these systems. But I think there is a lot of work that is still need to be done to make sure that we build these systems in a way that is safe, in a way that gives users guardrails and controls, and in a way that is thoughtful about user goals and outcomes. So that's definitely something that I think anyone designing and building recommender systems has to really think about, is how do we provide users value while also providing them the ability to have controls over that experience.
oh, this is good. Because what I think some people, when they do these questions, they forget that consumers will remember if they feel manipulated, they feel bad after they do some kind of purchase. It's not a good sensation. And to say, hey, why I bought this, it was because of some kind of impulse advertisement. And I completely agree with you to see that in long term, when you are considering the experience of the customer in a whole, as a whole, yeah, it's a much
Yeah,
better
we
deal.
want to design these systems, I think, really with, and I think this is a cliche, but really with the user as our top preference. And I think that unfortunately, often when we're building AI systems, we design for the majority, and then we forget that there are other users that are not the average user, right? That users are actually quite diverse and represent very different backgrounds and very different needs and very different outcomes. And so I think one of the biggest things that we can do as we're building these types of machine learning systems is really understand not just what is working for the majority of users, but actually what is working for every user, and how can we slice and understand different user experiences, where users might be feeling like they're getting value, but where users may feel like they're not getting value, and how do we ensure that we're designing the experience in a way that actually works for them.
Great. Another question that raised up here was what you do with the population that doesn't generate digital data, like in the topic of health, that there is part of the information that are in old archives or in paper files and so on.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, and I think, to me, it really focuses on what is the use case, right? And why do we want to digitize that data, and what do we want to use that data for? So I think it's actually really important that we not collect data until that we don't really have a good sense of what value it's going to provide in terms of the product and to the user, right? And so I think with data that is not digital, I think there's a lot of value in potentially digitizing that data. I imagine in healthcare, for example, we could provide stronger and better experiences to patients if their data was stored in a way that they could more easily access and not in paper format, right? But whether we should be using that actually for machine learning, I think still is an open question, right? I think especially with health data, there's many privacy implications. And so I think whenever we use health data for machine learning, we have to be really careful to think about the privacy implications, the value of the product, the potential biases and harms in the product. And so I think it really differs data to data and experience to experience.
Okay. Very good point. There is another one, I think that you already
Tem uma outra pergunta.
Response. One, let me check here.
Deixa eu só dar uma olhada aqui.
How
Como
Google is including on
Como o
AI
Google
life
está
cycle code
incluindo
development from real
o
world age.
desenvolvimento de codificação no mundo real?
Wait, sorry, could you say that again?
Você poderia repetir a pergunta?
It's something like that.
É algo assim.
How Google is
Como o
including
Google
on
está
AI
incluindo
life cycle
na
code
IA
development
o
some real
desenvolvimento
world
de
issues. I think
códigos
that they are
de
talking about
ciclo de
the
vida
cycle code
para o mundo
that you
real.
are
Acho que eles estão
using
falando
inside Google.
dos códigos que
I'm
vocês
sorry, I
usam
think
no
I'm hearing the
Google.
Portuguese translation, so I'm hearing both
Acho
of
que eu
these.
estou ouvindo
Me too. I don't
em
know what happened
português.
here with the translation here, but there is some technical issue here that I'm also listening to the Portuguese version.
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't able to fully understand what you were just saying because I was hearing both at the same time. I think you were saying something about what is the development cycle we use within Google.
Exactly that.
Yeah, so I think
I was talking about how you could include the word example, like things that happen in real life, how we could insert these feedbacks from real world examples inside your development code. If I got it wrong.
Got it.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, no, absolutely. I understand what you're saying. So I think, one thing I would recommend, so one thing that we've been doing at Google in terms of our development cycle has kind of been following that path that I mentioned in my talk, from like defining the product to collecting the data to training to evaluating to deploying. And I would definitely recommend going and checking out tensorflow.com/responsible AI because you'll see that flow there as well and sort of more details about it. I think one thing I would just recommend practically in terms of like if you're trying to embed these practices on your day-to-day is to really mostly, I think, take a step to ask yourself, who are you building this for? And who is being left out of that building at every step of the process. The other practical thing that I think is a really easy place to start is just really thinking about what metrics you should establish in your development process to account for, fairness or safety considerations. Because I think often as AI developers, we're used to optimizing for metrics, right? You might optimize for precision or recall or accuracy. And so thinking also about how do you bring culturally notions of fairness and safety into that development process, because then it's just a part of the way that you build a product, right? It's similar to the way that you think about precision. You also think about, how do you ensure that this is working across diverse communities? And that can often be a really nice place to start, because then you can work from there to say, well, okay, it's not working the way I expected it to work. How do I expand from there?
Lucy, I'm really grateful for. I'm really happy that you could join us and that we faced all kind of problems tonight.
Yes, I'm very happy we made it happen. I would love to continue the conversation and hopefully join future events again. I wish that we were able to make this longer, but thank you so much for having me and enjoy the rest of the time.
Okay, thank you to be part of this event. Thank you for your patience to try to connect us. I know that you tried hard to ask for your provider of Wi-Fi and so on, and it was great that you could join us. Fernando, do you want to make the final words? I want just to say bye to Tusi. Thank you, and Fernando, you can finish the event and you can wait for tomorrow. Thank you, Tusi.
Thank you, Tsuji. And well, we are run out of time. Tomorrow at 8 o'clock, we will continue our agenda. And tomorrow we will have some very good conversations. So don't miss. Tomorrow we will be here at 8 o'clock again and see you. I'd like to once more to great to our sponsors, H2O, Semantics, EducaCross, FIA, and all of this supporting is necessary to make this available. Thank you very much. See you tomorrow morning, and we are waiting for you at 8 o'clock again. Thank you. Good night.
Okay, see you tomorrow.